As we know, one of my two favorite people on the planet, being facetious here, Janet Yellen, the current Treasury Secretary, and Jay Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve. Janet Yellen is on her way out, obviously, because she's appointed by the president. So new Scott Bessent, the new Treasury Secretary, is going to take over in a couple of weeks. But on her way out, Janet Yellen, she did an interview on CNBC. I watched it. She was smiling. I'm like, I don't know why the heck you're smiling, lady. But if you guys do follow me at all, I talk quite a bit about Mr. Friedman, one of the legendary economists of our time. He said inflation is man-made. I agree 100%. However, all the way until now, Janet Yellen has been saying that, well, we did not create inflation. It's not man-made. It's not this. It's not that, kick the can down the road and whatever. Well, finally, I think she's owning up to it. And in that interview, she said this. And I'm going like, Janet Yellen says, COVID stimulus may have contributed a little bit to inflation. That's like being a little pregnant. No, Ms. Yellen. And there's the interview right there. You guys can go check it out. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said Wednesday that the stimulus spending signed into law by President Joe Biden to aid the U.S. recovery from COVID-19 pandemic may have contributed a little bit to the country's subsequent inflation woes. Okay, I agree to a point, but the widespread rise in prices that marred the Democrats' administration was mostly a supply-side phenomenon caused by the pandemic itself. Okay. I have my rebuttal to that, and my rebuttal is when black swan events take place, like the pandemic, the governments have to do stuff, right? That's why the government's there. That's why we need the government. We don't need the government in everyday life, but we need the government when stuff goes sideways, okay? The printing and spending habit has been there already, Ms. Yellen. Our national debt was about 27 trillion, not billion. What am I doing? Trillion. My head is not straight today. Trillion, Ms. Yellen. And during the pandemic, 7 trillion was printed and pumped into the economy. All right. Well, that pushed our national debt to 35, and then every 100 days it's going up $1 trillion. So this is not just a supply side situation, Ms. Yellen, right? We have a bad habit of spending money we don't have. And how do we close the gap between what's incoming and what's outgoing? When your treasury receipts are $4.7 trillion and your Washington degenerates are spending $7.5 trillion every year, well, the Fed has to have their hands tied. They have to follow a broken fiscal policy. Our fiscal house is broken, Ms. Yellen. It's been broken for a while. And I don't know what Elon and Vivek are going to do with Doge. I mean, talk is talk. Talk is cheap. We got to see the action now. But the point is, this was not just brought upon by supply side issues due to the pandemic, because the government gaslights every single American every single day with all this economic data. They keep telling you that inflation is only 2%, 3%. That's their target rate. Don't kid yourselves. Inflation runs 6 to 7% a year. And with the printing and spending, it's called debasing of the US dollar. We've reached $36.2 trillion in national debt. We put ourselves in a box. How do we come out of the box? I have no idea. I do have ideas, but this is not the place for it. So to Ms. Yellen, I'm glad you're owning up to it. 7 trillion was probably too much, but it had to be done, I guess. But it just, you should also own up to a broken fiscal policy followed by a broken monetary policy. And I'm glad you're accepting that it's that, but don't just say that it was just because of supply side issues, supply constraints or restraints because of the pandemic. We have been sowing the seeds of inflation for a long, 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 long time. And I'm going to go finish this with Milton Friedman quote. Simple definition of inflation is too many dollars chasing too few goods. When you do print those kind of dollars and pump it into the economy to keep the economy straight, live on borrowed money, inflation will rear its ugly head, and it is difficult to kill it. It really is difficult to kill it. I've done a bunch of content before this about, what the Fed is doing. I mean, I do kind of blame the Fed as well, obviously, but then their hands are tied. Fed is following a broken fiscal policy, and there isn't much they can do about it. But our debt to GDP is 130% plus now and on its way higher. And we'll find out. We'll find out what the new administration is going to do.